Hey, welcome back to the Mentor Me podcast. It's been a little while. I'm your host, Trevor Hall, and today's episode is with the CEO of WD-40, Garry Ridge. On this episode, we talk a lot about the culture that Garry has built over at WD-40 and how he builds that team to buy into that company culture. I hope you enjoy this episode with Garry Ridge. Just to start us off, what does leadership mean to you and how would you define it?
Well, the definition I really love is one of Simon Sinek's, actually, which is leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership's about taking care of the people in your charge. So I believe our job as leaders is to help people step into the best version of their personal self.
Got it. And when you're leading so many people at WD-40, I'm sure, there are a lot of people in your charge. How do you zone in on exactly who's in your charge? What does that mean to you?
Well, one of the things, the desires we have as human beings is to belong. And we call ourselves a tribe, not a team, as you probably know. And the reason we call ourselves a tribe is because we want to belong to something. So, what we really think about is, how do we create an environment? And if you can imagine it this way, imagine a place where you go to work every day, you make a contribution to something bigger than yourself, you learn something new, you're protected and set free by a compelling set of values, and you go home happy. And so our job as leaders is to create that environment. In 384 BC, Aristotle said, pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. So as leaders, our job is to put pleasure in the job, and from that we get perfection in the work. So communicating with our people is so important. Treating them with empathy is very important. Showing them gratitude is very important. And also making sure we hold each other accountable.
Yeah, I've heard you, I've read about WD-40, and I've heard you say, all in all, we're an oil company, but even deeper than that, we really have built into this culture and tried to create something amazing. And I read that, team members at WD-40, about 98% of them say they love the work they do at WD-40 and they love to work there. How do you instill that in an oil company? When you say all in all, we're an oil company, but how do you make it something people love to be a part of?
Well, I think it goes back to our just cause. Our just cause is to make life better at work and at home. So really, that's why we get up every day. And, we say we're in the memories business. We exist to create positive, lasting memories, solving problems in factories, homes, and workshops around the world. We solve problems and we create opportunities. So I think if you have a place where people are making a contribution to something bigger than themselves, then it becomes meaningful. So, we just sell oil in a can, right? No, we don't. We create positive, lasting memories. That's why we get up every day.
Yeah, and it's a way better vision for the company. It creates an excitement around oil in a can. Like it creates something that people want to be a part of. And is that something that companies can do in any industry that they're in?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's again, it's a matter of really determining what your purpose is. What are you delivering? And it would be very easy for us to say we're in the squeaks business, but we're not. But what being in the memories business too, it drives so many other parts of our business. It drives the way we think about formulating our product. We have a mandatory that says we'll have no cancer-causing chemicals in any product we sell. Why? Because that would not create a positive, lasting memory. The way we treat our customers, the way that we want to delight our end users, the way we treat each other in the office. It's about creating a positive, lasting memory. And I'll tell you a little story how that works. I was in a meeting some time back, and there was someone in the meeting that was not creating a positive, lasting memory. They were having what you would call, Trevor, a bad morning. So at the end of the meeting, I said to this person, hey, let's go for a walk. And we walked out of the building and I started to look in trash cans and under cars and behind trees. And he said, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "I'm looking for you." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "The you I know and love was not in that room today. You weren't creating positive, lasting memories. What's on your mind?" And we had a conversation, and they just had a bad morning, and whatever. So our second value in the company is to create positive, lasting memories. So by having that value, I could challenge the person based on a value, and we had a very nice coaching, mentoring conversation around there may have been a better way to handle that morning.
That's incredible, though. Even I love the value, the second value you mentioned, but also just the leadership that you showed in that moment. A lot of leaders, I would think, could lash out in that meeting and not look to understand where the person's coming from. Maybe they had a tough morning with their family. Maybe they were, running late to work. Things were going hectic. I'm sure you weren't always that way as a leader. I'm sure that there were moments where you didn't recognize that. Do you remember a story where you really learned, well, maybe I shouldn't treat this person this way? Maybe something did go wrong before work. Do you have any stories that you had to learn from in that sense?
Yeah, I'm certainly not perfect, and I often say I'm consciously incompetent. And in most situations, I'm probably wrong and roughly right. But when I was given the privilege to lead WD-40 Company back in 1997, I really looked at us and I thought, well, what is it that we want to be? And interestingly enough, I was on a flight from Los Angeles to Sydney. And as you know, Trevor, I'm Australian. That's my home country. And I was reading some of the work of the Dalai Lama. And there was something that was written that was really the pivot point for my thinking. It was written, your purpose in life is to make people happy. If you can't make them happy, at least don't hurt them. And what was clear to me was there were many, many leaders who were not making people happy. They were hurting them. And in fact, I invented later on and just recently, Al, the soul-sucking CEO. And Al, the soul-sucking CEO, has a set of behaviors that really create toxic environments. And I'll tell you what those behaviors are, right? Al has to be the master of control. He has to know it all. He thinks he's corporate royalty. He's got the biggest office, maybe a personal parking spot. He's lived his life and fought to get on this throne of leadership. So those shall beg down to Al. Al reckons learning is for losers because Al has all the answers. Al's ego eats his empathy instead of his empathy eating his ego. It's all about me with Al. He says that he must always be right. He loves fear-based motivation. He tries to motivate through fear. He thinks micromanagement is essential. He's got to have his fingers in everything. He doesn't follow through with his commitments, and he hates feedback. So those are the attributes of Al, the soul-sucking CEO or the soul-sucking leader that creates toxic cultures where people don't like going to work. And I thought, that's not what we're going to have. We're going to create an environment where servant leadership is important. And just after I became CEO, I went back to school. I went to the University of San Diego. I did a master's degree in leadership there. That's where I met my mentor, Ken Blanchard, the 1 Minute Manager. And Ken and I become great mates in the end, and we've written a book together, and he's 81 years old now, and I see him just about every week. But it was his mentorship around the power of servant leadership that was really the cornerstone or the pivoting point for me, the tipping point about what I wanted to try and build at the company.
Yeah, I love how you have written out Al's characteristics, because as you're saying those, I think we can all see a part of Al in the work that we do. As you were talking, I saw a couple things in myself where I'm like, I can do that. I can definitely fall into that trap, and it does me no good every time I do it. So I love that you've written out those characteristics, because then it's kind of like the helpful, hurtful thing. I'm definitely not going to be Al because the Al is hurtful. If I'm not helpful, I'm not going to be Al. What are some characteristics you see, Garry, in team members that help build a great culture? We talked a little bit about Al, the soul sucking CEO. What are a couple of things that team members and yourself try to instill at WD-40?
Leaders involve their people. We don't have all the answers. We don't have any of the answers. So we need to involve our people. Through our people, we'll get the answers. We're always in servant leadership mode, and which means we are there to serve the people that we lead. We're expected to be competent. So we're just always learning. We're always seeking out. We're curious. We have a heart of gold and a backbone of steel. You know, you've got to be courageous as a leader. It's not easy work. I mean, and you've got to be disciplined and focused. You've got to be a champion of hope instead of being someone who's, about fear.
Yeah.
And you really need to treasure feedback, because it's from the feedback that you'll have your learning moments, and that's where you'll improve.
How do you instill a culture of feedback without having it go too far where it feels nitpicky at everything you do? And how do you receive that well as an employee? And I guess what I'm asking is, how are you able to instill that in other people? Because it's easy to do that yourself. How do you make sure that team members know it's a culture of feedback?
Well, first you've got to remove fear, because most people don't like feedback because they're afraid of it.
Yeah.
And we fix that by saying we don't make mistakes, we have learning moments. So there's no mistakes at WD-40 Company. I've never made a mistake in my life, but I've had thousands of learning moments. And the definition of a learning moment is a positive or negative outcome of any situation that needs to be openly and freely shared with all people. And how do you receive feedback? It's very easy. There's just two words: thank you.
I agree.
You don't have to do anything with it. But all you have to do is say, well, thank you. Let me take that on board and see what I can do with it. I appreciate you giving me the feedback.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes it can be so hard, and all you want to do right in that moment is say, well, you just want to say, well, shut up. I don't do that. But I bet if you do take that, like you said, and say, thank you for your feedback, and you sat on it for a day, I bet there is some truth in it. Maybe not all the time it's 100% truthful, but I think a lot of the time there is a piece of truth you can take and learn from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, you're right, Trevor. Someone starts to give us feedback, and the first thing we start to do is prepare our rebuttal. No, that's not me. I don't do that. And as soon as we start doing that, we stop listening.
Yeah.
And, a great leader has what I call bleeding tongue syndrome. Do you know what I mean by that?
No clue.
They're always biting their tongue.
I love it.
Yeah. So listen with empathy is something that I think is important. And assume positive intent of the other person. And you'll know whether you're getting BS or not. And you just say, thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything with it.
Right.
But you're right. There's something in everything somebody says to you.
Yeah, I'm sure you've had to learn that as CEO. I'm sure you get unwarranted feedback from people you don't want to hear from, and the people closest to you where you do want to hear from it. So I'm sure that's something that you've learned to do extremely well over the years. Garry, with all the changes in the past year, people working from home, that adds new challenges and opportunities for leaders. What are some things that you've worked on as some of your team members are working from home to instill that the culture is still there? And even with team members being brought on, maybe socially distant brought on, how do you instill that in those employees?
One of the big learnings from COVID is in times of great and real need, we can pivot around fear. And that's what a lot of people had to do. So be inclusive, communicate always and always. Don't just tell people what we're going to do, but tell them why we're thinking of doing it. Be more inclusive than you've ever been before. I send a personal message out to every tribe member every morning. It's called for today from, and it's been here from my home for most of the last year. So staying connected. I've written many personal notes to people. I've sent people little books. You've just got to, continue to do what you need to do to stay connected, and truly, showing people you care, because true leaders do care.
Yeah, they do. I can imagine, part of your philosophy too is hiring people who are going to do that, because obviously you can't do that with every team member at WD-40, but the people under you and the people under them, they all can do the same things you're doing and connect in different ways. And I like what you said, communicate always and always. What exactly do you mean by that?
Communicate always, so all the time, and always, by phone, by
Interesting.
So, and you cannot over communicate. It's picking up the phone and calling one of your tribe mates and just asking, "Hey, Trevor, what's on your mind? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And just listening is important.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I was thinking in my head to communicate always and always. I was like, the way I interpreted that was, well, always doing it, but I didn't know what you meant in all ways. I really like the way you worded that. I want to hit quickly on employee engagement. I read that employee engagement's it's at like a record low in the US, where 70% of employees feel disengaged with the work that they're doing. What is the key to getting employees engaged at WD-40? As I read, 98% of people love the work that they do. They feel very involved at WD-40. And what is the difference between what WD-40 is doing and what a lot of other companies are doing where people aren't engaged?
They don't have a clear purpose. Number one is they're not dedicated to the fact that it's all about the people. See, there's two things you need in business. You need the will of the people and strategy. Okay, so let's say you took your strategic plan, and Harvard Business School gave you 70 out of 100 for that. So you got a really bold and exciting strategic plan. Good plan, bold plan. But let's say the will of the people was 30, i.e. the employee engagement was 30. 30 times 70 is 2,100, right?
Right.
So you're not maximizing your business opportunity, because people, as Aristotle said, they don't get any pleasure in the work. So number one is you've got to be dedicated to the people. Then you have to have a clear purpose. What is our purpose? What's the bigger purpose of the organization? You've got to have a clear set of values that both protect people and set them free. And then you've got to consistently do that. I have an algorithm for culture. Culture equals, and the equal sign means happens when, parentheses, values plus behavior, close parentheses, times consistency. So as a leader, you've got to be brave enough and love your people enough to not only applaud them when they're doing great work, but redirect them when they need to be redirected, and do it with compassion and empathy. And it's consistently attempting to then listen to the people, listen to what they're telling you. We do employee opinion surveys. We do them every 2 years. At the moment, we did them every year because I wanted to check if our tribal equity had drained during COVID. And we listen to what people tell us. And then we go back and we say, this is what you told us. Now, how are you going to fix it? Because I can't fix it. We have to do that together. So that's really important.
That's so good. Well, Garry, to finish off here, I just have some more fun lifestyle questions. What are some great habits that you've picked up throughout your life that have helped propel you to where you are now?
Probably the most powerful one is what I call my daily questions. And I have 18 questions I ask myself every day, and I scale myself 1 to 10 of these questions. And the start of the questions are, did I do my best to? Did I do my best to set clear goals? Did I do my best to work towards those goals? Did I do my best to be happy? Did I do my best to listen with empathy? Did I do my best to connect with family? Did I do my best to declare victory? So I have these questions that I ask myself every day I think that's probably one of the most powerful ones because it keeps me centered. The other thing that I've learned is opportunities are abundant. Focus is a gift. So you need to look at all of the opportunities you have and decide which ones are most important. And then don't try to change things you can't change. If you're going to make a difference, work on things that you can make a difference on. I have a life meaning statement that says results of what I am doing matter to me and helps others. So the reason I'm here talking to you today is, you contacted me on LinkedIn. I didn't know you, but I liked what you were doing because you wanted to share with younger folks, how can we create a place where the world's a better place? So what you're doing matters to me and it helps others. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. What are a couple of the best lessons that you've taken from Ken, your mentor, along the way?
Treat people with empathy. Number one, is so important. Not one of us is as good as all of us together. It's really so important. And make sure you've got a clearly defined set of hierarchical values that help you make decisions, because that'll reduce churn and it'll help you focus.
Wow, that's so good. Well, Garry, tell me, where can people find you and where can they find your social media as well?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a good spot and you can find me on there. Just search Garry Ridge on LinkedIn. And I have a website too, www.thelearningmoment.net. And I post blogs on there. I've got a page of books that I recommend, and you can find me there.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode with Garry Ridge. If you did enjoy it, go give it a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you have anybody you'd love to see on the podcast, let me know on Instagram, let me know on Facebook, or you can email me at mentormepod@gmail.com. Thanks.